Welcome into the Saints postgame show right here on NewOrleansSaints.com. The Saints take a 23-22 loss to the Carolina Panthers alongside Super Bowl champ Scott Shanley. I'm Aaron Summers. Scott, if you look at the numbers in this one, the Saints put up 427 yards, 197 rushing yards, and then that makes for 230 passing yards. No interceptions, no turnovers, and yet they lose the game by 1 point. What led to that final?
Yeah, the numbers are confusing because, like you said, they dominated the running game. 74 total plays to 50 plays. You own the line of scrimmage, the time of possession, all the things go in your favor. You just start looking at it, and maybe you have 10 penalties on the day. Some of those penalties lead to the things we talked about before, hitting yardage. The yards that don't necessarily show up in the box score that cost you points. So I would say penalties. But I think the biggest thing, probably the red zone. Kicking too many field goals early on in the game. A lot of times you play a team like Carolina, they're 2-7, they're struggling, and you think that you don't need it.
All right, well, Coach is ready. So we're going to head it to the locker room and hear from head coach Dennis Allen after this one.
Hurt for those guys in that locker room. I know they put their heart and soul into it, and to keep coming out on the negative end is quite challenging. I thought we had some guys that stepped up, in particular in the secondary, and did some good things. Shamar, I thought, overall played a solid game. There were some good things we did. We ran the ball exceptionally well. We had two opportunities in the early on in the game to score touchdowns down there in the red area. We weren't able to do that, and I think really that became really the difference in the game.
Yeah, what happened on the cause of two timeouts early in the third quarter? Was it 12 men, and then what was it?
Yeah, we had a substitution error defensively. That can't happen. And then we had a play call that we ran out of a personnel grouping due to some injuries that we had to try to make some adjustment there. So those are two things that can't happen.
What was the goal in the 4th and 4 play call towards the end?
Well, the goal was to try to hit Juwan on an option route inside.
And then the fourth down before that, the 4th and 1, did you guys consider maybe trying to go for it? Or?
Yeah, we thought we talked about it. I mean, look, with where we were in the game, I mean, I felt like pinning them back there was the right decision. Hindsight's 20/20. But I thought pinning them back there was the right decision.
Dennis, on the last play, is the progression to go from Juwan to the deep ball or Juwan someplace else to get the first down there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're looking inside Juwan, but if you get a matchup outside, I think the initial thought was let's get the ball to Juwan on an option route.
Dennis, how do you come back from a game like this? You had your quarterback back, and obviously you were facing the head team.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean. It was hard. I mean, I just watching Derek, he looked a little rusty out there today. Obviously, and losing Chris early on in the game, I think was hard on us. And I think sometimes trying to get yourself emotionally back from things like that when you see a guy that going down with the second time in the season. I think it's kind of difficult to come back from that, but. We had our opportunities. We didn't take advantage of them.
Y'all have been a tweet that a lot of people join you guys traveling back. Any update?
Yeah, I know he's back, and I know that everything checked out pretty good at the hospital, and he's back with the team, and that's really about all I can say right now.
When you've lost 7 straight, what gives you hope that the team can turn things around without making major changes?
Yeah, well, we got good leadership in the room. We got to do a better job playing, coaching. Hopefully get some guys healthy. But look, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a challenge. But going through adversity like this reveals character. And our only choice is to stand up and fight.
You've said before you don't believe that mid-season coaching changes do anything, or I know that's not your exact wording, but do you still believe that, or do you believe that you need to sit down and assess?
Well, I just think we got to do better, But yeah, as a rule, I don't really believe that is the difference. So we'll evaluate where we are, and we'll make changes based on what we think our, issues are.
You mentioned a lot of times last week about offensive penalties in key spots, and I never saw them again on the stretch here. Like, how do you guys get those cleaned up?
Well, we got to execute with better technique. I thought there were some tough calls, later in the game that, didn't go our way. And so I thought that was hard.
Can you elaborate on any of the specific calls?
No.
Or maybe the Allen call, is that one you're thinking of?
There was, obviously we didn't get the calls at the end of the game, so that was difficult.
Can y'all kind of explain the, I know you already went through the fourth down call at the end. Can you kind of take us through the 3rd and 13 when it was a pitch to Alvin? It seemed like that was kind of like a tough play. That was when you got a yard.
Yeah. I think when you're backed up like that, the deal is to have positive play. I'd rather us not run out of bounds in that situation, which then eats up a timeout. So I think that was the thought there.
Dennis, obviously the spotlight is heavily on you right now,
Sure.
Coach, during this. What, to campaign or defend yourself or anything, but like what is your confidence that you're doing a good enough job?
Well, obviously, when you're not winning, it's hard to say that you are. That's hard to say. And look, I got to be better for our guys. And here's what I'll say: I'm going to keep coming in every day and fighting my ass off, just like I have every single day that I've been here. And I'll just keep doing that.
I know we've asked similar questions to this, but do you feel like now you kind of have to fight for your job? Like,
I feel like I'm going to come in and try to do the very best job I can every single day. That's what I've always done. I've been here for a long time, and that's the way I've gone about doing my job. So.
Have you heard from Mickey or anything already? Like, do you know?
No, I came in here after visiting with the team. I came pretty much straight in here.
I don't feel like the questions in this game, just from the naked eye, were the same kind of effort, energy questions we were talking about after maybe that Thursday night game. From your viewpoint, did all that stuff look intact to you today?
Yeah, I didn't see a lot of, effort issues. I didn't see a lot of busts. We got beat a couple of times. But I didn't see it as a huge execution issue. There's some, again, I thought, particularly there in the fourth quarter, wasn't this way early on in the game, but particularly in the fourth quarter, I thought some calls went, against us that, again, put us back in those long distance situations, which are hard to overcome.
Yeah, can you elaborate a little bit more on the first 2 drives of the game? I think you guys ran like 21 plays or something like that. Got into their deep in their territory, but come away with field goals and felt like that. Those are drives you really need some touchdowns, but they kind of established the momentum.
Yeah, look, I said that, starting off in here, I felt like that was the difference in the game. I thought we had some opportunities to score touchdowns early in the game. We had to settle for field goals, and that ends up being the difference. Again, I thought the first 2 drives we were able to run the ball effectively and move the ball down the field, and then we stalled out in the red zone, and that's, that's the difference between winning and losing.
Do you have to kind of account for just, I guess, what seems like an obvious thing? The quarterback's been out for a few weeks, and then back to kind of account for the rust he's going to have and build a play sheet around.
Yeah, and yet, look, I didn't see a lot of issues throughout the week of practice, but obviously games are different than practice, and I think our plan was to be able to come in here and try to run the football, and we were able to do that. I don't, think we were able to get quite as much done in the passing game. I think Chris is a big factor in that, but I don't think we were able to get quite as much done in the passing game as we would have liked.
Did you expect to be able to affect their quarterback more? I think there was maybe 2 sides to conclude.
Yeah, I thought maybe we could. I know, look, their plan, really was trying to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands pretty quickly. So, some screen plays and things of that nature to, not allow, the rush to get there. So, but yeah, I would have liked to seen us, be able to affect him a little bit more.
Knowing how this team played the first 2 weeks, can you wrap your head around 7 straight?
Yeah, it's certainly frustrating. It felt like we let a couple of opportunities slip through our hands early on. And I felt like the injuries have been a major factor in the last probably 5. But that's the nature of our league.
Were you asked about Carr's rust?
Excuse me?
Were you asked about Carr's rust?
Yeah. Yeah. All good. All right. Thanks.
Carl, anything
He's
further?
already in there.
I felt uncomfortable.
Saints take the 23-22 loss at Carolina. It is their 7th straight loss. Scott Shanley, Aaron Summers here. One of the areas that has been discussed quite frequently is the red zone production. And this game, the way that the Saints offensively started out with 2 field goals on their first 2 drives, I feel like that makes you play a little bit tighter, puts more pressure on your defense. That could have been a huge difference had they been able to get 6 and 7 out of those 2 first drives.
Yeah, there's no question. I think starting fast, especially when you've had your recent struggles, but you go on the road against a team that has struggled, we know, all year. They haven't figured out their quarterback situation. They don't know if they have their franchise quarterback. If you could have went on the road and jumped out to a 7-0, 14-0 lead, 10-0 lead right away, and now you put all the pressure on them to drop back and throw the ball, and as a defensive line, you can kind of unleash the pass rush. And the Saints never got into that advantage where the Panthers had to throw the ball. The Panthers could run the ball, play action, drop back. They could do whatever they wanted the whole game. And a lot of it just goes back to not starting fast and taking advantage of those points when they existed.
The Saints end up 50% in the red zone. Carolina ended up 3 of 3. So every time that they were able to get down there, they got big points out of it. It was a slow start, I think, from the Saints in terms of catching a rhythm, even though you had quarterback Derek Carr back for the first time in 3 games. What did you see from him in his performance?
Yeah, I thought anytime you miss a month of the season, there's a time where you have to knock off some rust, even if you play 10-plus years in the NFL. That's just the way it is. Because the speed of the game, you can practice fast all week. There's a whole different speed of the game once you get into the live reps. So I thought Derek did a good job of managing the game. Not many throws down the field, and I don't know if that was by design going into the game. I think the big plan of today was running the football, which they did really well. Alvin's 12 yards away from the all-time franchise leading rusher. He's going to get that next week in the Dome against the Atlanta Falcons. That'll be fun to see. But Alvin took the game over. The offensive line took the game over. And a lot of times it's hard to lose games when you run the ball that effectively. So I don't think there was much pressure on Derek. Derek just managed the game. It was almost like, Derek, you're going to manage the game today. Don't turn the football over. So for the most part, he did a really good job doing those things.
How much do you think the game plan changed, though, when wide receiver Chris Olave went out with a concussion early in the game?
Oh, a lot. I think it changed dramatically because Chris is no doubt the number one guy. Chris is going to get double-digit targets every week. And so you take a guy like that out of the game, which I think made it even more impressive that Alvin did what he did, because the Panthers, once Chris went out,
they knew that was all you're going to do. Yeah.
And so for Alvin and the offensive line to still run the ball was really impressive. But still, when you don't have Chris out there and his playmaking ability and his route running ability to keep a defense on their heels, it was a huge loss for this Saints offense. And I said earlier that there weren't enough shots down the field. Having him out of the game is a big reason why you don't get those shots down the field.
Carr's longest pass was a 25-yard connection with Juwan Johnson. You don't have Rashid Shaheed, who was one of those deep threat players. Marquez Valdes-Scantling was in the game, wasn't really utilized like that, and that's been what's been his calling card, is his speed and his ability to get deep.
Yeah, he's a guy who's played in Buffalo, played with Mahomes with the Chiefs, obviously in Green Bay. He's been in a lot of different systems. So you think as a veteran player, it is hard to get up to speed in this league because everybody has different verbiage and different alignments and different things like that. So give him a little bit more time, and I think he will be a bigger contributor into this offense. But he's a guy who's been productive in the NFL. He's a guy who I thought once Chris went out would probably get some more targets, but that really fell on Taysom and Alvin and Juwan Johnson a little bit more today.
Wide receiver Chris Olave is doing well. It was a scary moment in the game when he went out, and he was taken off on a cart and then went to the hospital, got checked out, but his vitals are good. He is responsive, and he is going to be on the team plane heading back to New Orleans with the team. So those are all good things there. Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill really did give the Saints offense the boost that they needed. Alvin, you mentioned 155 rushing yards, 60 receiving yards, but Taysom Hill, that quarterback power, it's unstoppable.
Yeah. You heard the master question to DA there in the post game. Did you consider going for it on 4th and short late in the game? I certainly, when number 7's wearing a helmet and got shoulder pads on, and Florida Leon, I think anytime you're in 4th and short, it's hard not to put him on the field and just say, run off tackle, run some power. We're going to put a bunch of blockers over here. You're going to get behind them. You squat over 600 pounds. They're not going to stop you from 1 yard. I think 4th and short with 7 is pretty much undefeated. So I think, in my opinion, I would like to see them go for it late in the game and really ice it and take control of the game. I know the defense was playing well, and Carolina's been kind of struggling offensively, but just take it out of their hands and believe in number 7, because I think he's done it enough times that you could have done that.
He did get into the end zone one time. It was a 7-yard QB run, and it took him 3 efforts. I mean, he was pushing people along with him as he got across the goal line. That made it 13-7 in the first half of play. As this game went on, there were a couple situations where the Saints were 2 minutes at the end of the second quarter, and the play calling as far as timeouts. What did you make of them waiting until 2 seconds on the clock to call that first timeout? Yeah,
it was a little confusing. I think you heard the guys on the broadcast with the same thing. You call a timeout, and then it just didn't match up to what you were trying to go for. Because had you called the timeout earlier and you got the plays that you ended up getting, you probably would have gotten a field goal range. At least had an attempt to kick the field goal. So I don't know if initially they thought, let's just get to halftime, and then they ended up with a play or two that they didn't expect to pop. But still, take advantage of that field position where you are and call that timeout. All it takes is a draw play or a screen play. Now you're across midfield, or somebody gets out of bounds, and you have an opportunity to kick a field goal or get some points, because points were at a premium today. And a 1-point loss, you never know what could have happened just because of that timeout before halftime.
At that point, it was just 13-10. That was the halftime score there. You go into the fourth quarter, and the Saints, there's a big touchdown pass to Foster Moreau, 17 yards. At the very beginning of the fourth quarter, you take the lead 22-17, go for the 2-point conversion and opt to pass. And it was deflected immediately at the line. How about that decision?
Yeah, I think, again, when you have number 7 in Pat, you'd like to see him touch the ball. But, I saw a stat where the Saints haven't converted a 2-point conversion pass since 2019. So something about throwing the ball on 2-point conversions is not working. Sometimes it's hard to get cute down there and run a whole lot of misdirection and things like that, because the defense is usually selling out. But like I said, the way they were running the football today with Alvin and when you have Taysom Hill active in the game plan, I think utilizing those 2 guys down there inside the 5-yard line at any point is usually a good option.
It seemed like in the fourth quarter things were clicking for the Saints. Offensively, they were moving the ball very well, led to that initial touchdown. And then cornerback Shamar Jean-Charles getting his first start in the NFL, his first game action here with the Saints, just got signed a couple weeks ago to the practice squad, signed to the 53 yesterday, comes up with a huge interception, 9:14 left to go in the game. And at that point, you're thinking momentum is on our side.
Yeah.
You got a turnover that was vital late in the game when points were at a premium. Him stepping in and the way that he intercepted that was huge.
Oh, it was a heck of a play. I mean, that's a young man taking advantage of his playing time and making plays. Because I'm with you. When he made that play, I thought, that's the play of the game.
Yeah.
Offense, do your thing, keep running the football because you've been controlling the line of scrimmage. That's the one takeaway you needed to ice this game. So I really thought when you make plays like that and see guys make individual efforts like that, usually the game turns out with a win, because those are just rare plays. And I thought he had tight coverage. It was a great throw, but it was a great finish by him and stripping the ball out of there and making a play for his team.
You alluded to it. Unfortunately, the Saints did not opt to go for it on 4th and 1 on their next possession. They give the ball back to the Panthers. The Panthers score. They had a big 26-yard pass to Leggett, and then ended up with a 16-yard touchdown run to Chuba Hubbard. His ability to run today, it was tough on the Saints.
No, he's a really good back. And if you look at the stats before this game and all the matchups, the Panthers are in the 30s for rankings for a lot of different categories. The one thing that they were ranked decently high, they were 12th overall in the NFL, was their running game. And a lot of that was because of Hubbard. He's a tough physical runner, and he's tough to tackle. You have to gang tackle him. You have to have multiple bodies to him, because you ask one guy to tackle him, it's tough. And he's one of those backs that just turns his legs and always finds a way to fall forward for 2 or 3 yards, and he's got a nice yards per carry average because of that.
His ability to elude the defense, especially at the line, reminds me a lot of Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
And he's a little bit bigger guy, but definitely some of AK there. There were a couple penalties, one on that drive, a defensive pass interference on Demario Davis, which advanced the ball 22 yards, really helped them move down the field. Saints end up with 10 penalties for over 100 yards. And it was Demario who had 2 of them. He had a face mask earlier. Trevor Penning had 2 late in the game, a holding, and then I think it was a false start as well. So those penalties just shouldn't be happening at this point in the season.
No, especially when you have 10 penalties, and to your point, it's not, sometimes, yes, it is the number of penalties, it's when it's happening in the game too. In a tight game like this, where a field goal is going to win a tight battle, it's getting your offense behind. Demario, I think on the coverage, he had tight coverage, but maybe, if he just gets his head around and he puts his arm up, they don't call it. But anytime a referee sees you running stride for stride and the ball kind of comes down while your head is not turned around, they're just going to throw the flag. And I don't necessarily know if it was pass interference. I think it just depends on how that guy evaluates the play. But if you turn your head there, you probably make the play. Because it wasn't like the guy was burning him. He just didn't turn his head around, so the refs thought he interfered with the ability to make the catch.
It was an unfortunate time there because it did lead to that the eventual game-winning touchdown. It put it up 23-22 for the Panthers at that point. The Saints get the ball back with a little over 2 minutes to go. And then you advance to the 4-4 at the 46, fourth down play, and Carr throws it deep, incompletion.
Yeah,
it's a tough play call.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you went back and asked Coach Kubiak and Dennis and even Derek, they would say, yeah, we probably shouldn't have just chucked it up there. I think he was giving his guy a chance because he knew it was one-on-one coverage. But just situationally, 4th and 4, you probably like a higher percentage play. And if you don't throw that play, I like Alvin out of the backfield on a linebacker.
Well, you still had a minute 4 on the clock.
Yeah. So, it wasn't a play that you just needed it because you had 10 seconds left. So I didn't like it because it almost felt like it was a panic type play. Just chuck it up there and hopefully we come down with it. But at that point in the game, to your point, you have enough time where you can drop back and go through a progression of 1, 2, 3 receivers and go to the best open option instead of just kind of chucking it up there and hoping for the best.
We can talk a little special teams here because there were some good moments and some not so great moments. You start with the first one where Matthew Hayball shanks the punt and it gives the Panthers great field position. They end up turning that into their first score of the game. But then he redeems himself a little bit later with the fake punt, and he runs 11 yards for the first down. Yeah,
it was I loved it. First of all, you would be shocked at how many punters can run in this league. For some reason, some of the punters I played with, they can run. They love the weight room. They're tremendous athletes. They were on the track team in college and all these things. So there's a lot of punters disguised as really good athletes in the NFL. But I thought it was a perfect fake punt for what was going on with Carolina, what they were doing. And maybe they audibled. Sometimes they have a check with me where we're not going to run the fake if we see this look. We're going to run the fake with this. And I almost think it was that because there was no contain. Carolina didn't even contain the ball on that side of the field, so it was an easy run. Had there been a defensive player there, he probably doesn't make that guy miss, but I thought it was a tremendous play call and a good job by him picking up the first down.
So he can run, but he might not have the ability to juke anybody.
I said punters are good athletes. I didn't say great football players with the ball in their hand.
I think that it was key, though, that it looked like Taysom Hill almost was the one that should have gotten the ball in that situation, and then the defense was kind of focused in on him.
Yeah, anytime Taysom lines up at that personal protector spot on punt team, even in safe defense, every special teams coordinator, I laugh because I always say that the defense coordinators are really focused on number 7. The special teams coordinators are too, because he can run the ball and he can throw the ball. So they're all scared to death that it's going to be a short snap to number 7. And he has unlimited options to fake a punt, and they kind of forget about the punter in that situation. So, number 7, when he's on the field, he causes a lot of headaches for coordinators, defensive coordinators and special teams coordinators.
There was a lot of talk about the cornerbacks coming into this game, knowing that they're down. Marshawn Lattimore, Paulson Adebo already with that season-ending injury, and then you go to Kool-Aid McKinstry. He ends up out in this one too. Rico Payton had a back injury, and he did not practice all week. He's unable to go. So you only had Elante Taylor, who has gotten a significant amount of playing time with this defense, And he's moved to a different
Yeah.
role. He
Yeah.
has been playing inside in the slot. He has moved outside. He had so much production against the Panthers in week 1 with those 3 sacks and his ability to be that inside rusher. How did his game change today when he moved outside?
Well, Elante is he's a heck of a football player. And I've said it probably about 4 weeks ago where I was watching enough Saints football and I said, this guy's the best defensive football player on this team. And every single week since then, he doesn't do anything to disappoint. I mean, he plays the nickel, gets all the sacks. Oh, guess what? We have an injury. You need to go up play outside corner now. There aren't many nickels in the league who can say, okay, now I'm going to go cover guys like he does at outside corner. So he's the best defensive player on this team. He's just a playmaker. He makes plays every week. And I kind of always laugh because during the draft, when they drafted Elante, they labeled him as a special teamer out of Tennessee. And so all the fans were just going crazy because we drafted a second rounder who's going to be a special teams contributor. And here he is. He's just a heck of a player and really fun to watch. And every week it seems like he makes a play, and it doesn't matter where you play him. And I think that's a true sign of a special football player. He can play nickel, he can play outside corner. Doesn't matter where you line him up, he finds a way to make plays, and he's fun to watch.
There was one play late in the second quarter where it looked like the Saints showed blitz, and then they changed out of that. Elante went from one side of the field to the complete opposite side of the field and took out Xavier Leggett, didn't allow him to make the completion. They didn't get the first down. His speed and the ability to react so quickly when there is a change made, I think makes him really special.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of guys, you watch the combine, there's guys who run 4.2 40 and they don't do anything, they have a 4.3. Elante has the unique ability he's got great speed, but he's got great instincts. And when you combine great speed and athleticism with the instincts that he has and his just football mind and the way he attacks every single Sunday, as a defensive coordinator, it's like, how many ways can we line him up so that he can be a productive player? And I think they're doing a good job defensively of putting him in position to make plays. But I don't want to say that because it almost takes away from, he just makes plays outside the framework of the defense too because he's a special player.
There were a couple moments that I'm sure even himself, he would say he wished he had back because he had a near interception deep in the Saints territory, which would have obviously been a great moment there. He's still looking for that. He is pretty hard on himself, and so he would have loved to have that one. And it's tough because we've been talking about these near opportunities that the Saints just can't quite get, whether it's getting Bryce Young down or the interception, a fumble. And it was something that we saw happen a lot at the beginning of the season, and it seems like they've dropped off in forcing those turnovers and takeaways.
Yeah, I would agree. And, going against a team like Carolina, if you can just take the ball away from them, you're probably going to win because they don't have enough firepower to overcome those mistakes. And, the Elante broke up the pass early in the game, and what players do is he's going to go back and say, if I would have intercepted that ball and had a pick six, that would have been the difference in the game. That's what everybody does.
Well, sure.
And he probably had the ability to put two hands up, but sometimes even really good players underestimate just how good a coverage they had. So early in the game, he probably didn't want to go after it and miss it and have the guy catch the ball, so he was playing it safe. Maybe later in the game he does that as he's getting warmed up into the game. But yeah, he makes so many plays, and you can't fault him for that. I think another player defensively who's played really good the last 2 weeks is Pete Werner. Pete was near the top tacklers again today, just like last week, and he's really been a good addition to this defense. I know it's not showing up, in wins, but when you look at what young guys, another young guy, him and Elante, who have come back, he's come back and he's really contributed and made some plays.
It's not ironic that you singled out a linebacker.
I got to give Pete credit where it's due. He was out with that hamstring injury, and his ability to come back and just play in space. He can play zone, he can play man, he blitzes well. I don't know if he's 100%, but he's out there playing. And him and DeMauro, DeMauro's a heck of a player, Pete's a heck of a player, but it seems like when those two play together, it's just kind of a match made in heaven, and they get the best out of one another.
Going into this game, you look at the Panthers' record, they're 1-7. You're like, we can get a win here. The fans, I'm sure, thought that way, but the Saints themselves, so they're not going to overlook this opponent. And you heard head coach Dennis Allen after the game say that it's hard for him when he knows how much work that the players are putting in, the team's putting in, to not get rewarded for that. And in such a narrow margin as a 1-point loss here. What do you do to regroup after this?
It's tough because there's no doubt in my mind that they are putting in the time, that they're studying the film, they're trying to find the tendencies of the Carolina Panthers or their opponent. They're practicing hard. They enjoy being around one another. and that makes it even more frustrating, is because all the intent is there, but that's what makes the NFL the greatest professional sports league, in my opinion, and why it's so highly watched and the fans are so good. You have so few opportunities, 17 times, 5 to 6 plays make a difference in most of these games, and that's just the difference in the NFL. And I think there's a lot of teams who put a lot of time into the film room. There's a lot of coaches who do the same thing, but it's all about on Sunday, do you have the players to make the plays when they matter most? And that's really what separates teams who end up picking in the top 10 of the draft versus the teams that pick in the bottom 10 of the draft. It's about making sure you have the guys that are making the plays on Sundays in those tight windows.
I can't remember who it was. I think it was Tyrann Mathieu who said this week that it really is any given Sunday in this league, and any Sunday something crazy can happen, and you go in with a game you should have won, and it doesn't. Even all the stats that we read should say that you win the game. You don't win the game. But with the kind of adding to it, the losing streak that the Saints are on, how much more frustration, pressure does that start to build within the team and what they need to deal with going forward?
Well, it does add pressure because, I think players will always say, we don't listen to people outside the building, but it's hard to. Everybody has social media accounts. Everybody watches the media and the national media.
Shoot, your next door neighbor might say something to you.
Oh, absolutely. People have no problem saying anything. So it is hard to just hunker down. It's easier to do that when you're winning because everybody's telling you that things are going great and you're focused on the next game. But when you're not winning, you want to know, am I going to be here next year? Am I going to get a contract extension? And that's just the natural thought process of players because everybody is an independent contractor, yes, but the truly special teams, when you're winning, it's easier to buy in and be part of that group think. And what you can't do now is when you start losing games thinking, well, I'm just going to go out there and make plays for myself. I'm going to update my resume, And so what happens sometimes is guys start playing outside the framework of the defense or offense. I'm just going to do my thing. I'm going to make plays because I want my highlight reel to look good. And that's where things can really spiral and fall apart. I don't think this team is there. I agree with Coach Allen. The hustle is there. The intent is there. It's just not resulting in wins.
Right. I would not agree with anyone that says that the effort's not there because I am in the locker room. I see them at practice. I see how they interact with each other, and they do care. They still are fighting. They want to win. They want to get it right, and they do feel like there are the pieces there. And that's been the frustrating issue with how these games have gone. It's just been a couple plays here and there that really could have changed the complete feel of the game. Whether it was one of those early drives getting in for a touchdown instead of a field goal, and you never know what could happen.
No, it really comes down to those things. And you're sitting there, you were 2-0, and everybody's telling you you're going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And just like that, 7 weeks later, you're 2-7, and everybody's telling you you're going to have the first pick in the draft. As a player, I don't want to hear that because I don't want to pick that high because the one thing about it is if you believe that, if you believe we're going to just be the number one team picking in the draft, then what's the incentive to show up every day and work hard and continue to love being around your teammates and love coaching guys? So nobody wants to believe that, and I think that's what makes the league so good is every day you're updating your resume. Nobody cares what your record is when it comes to if you want to keep playing in this league and if you want to keep playing on the team you're playing on or coaching on the team you're playing on, you have to update your resume every day, and that type of pressure every day. Some guys excel with that pressure, and some guys break with that pressure, and that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, well, these guys listen to me every week, and I definitely don't perform at my best. I make mistakes and don't always have stuff to put on my reel. So I understand how it goes, and it can be frustrating, but it looks like quarterback Derek Carr is making his way to the podium. So we're going to send it back to Charlotte and wait for him to make his statement after this one.
And here's a replay. Derek, I know there's no such thing as 100% week 9, but how did you feel out there today in terms of your percentage where you were?
Yeah, health-wise, I felt as good as you can, but good enough to play. At the beginning, felt a little rusty, but as the game kept going on, felt more and more in rhythm and felt good. And so, whenever you don't play professional football for a month, it is. You can't just go out there and just feel normal right off the bat, but I definitely felt good enough to help us try and win.
Derek, the last play, tell me about your progression on that. Is it? I know Coach was saying Juwan first. What is it after that?
And then it's the best matchup, and so they got good secondary, but number 8, going all week. We talked about number 8 being one of the premier corners in the league. So if you ever got man, which they don't play much of, going away from him. And so, gave my guy the best chance I could on a tight throw on the sideline.
When you look back on this game, are you going to look really hard at those first 2 drives of the game? When you guys, 21 plays, I believe it was, got the ball down the field, really efficient, and just missing a play here and there to get the ball in until having settled field goals?
Yeah, absolutely. You never want to settle field goals. It always comes down to the situation. So, for us finishing with touchdowns in the red zone instead of those field goals would have obviously, helped us for sure.
Derek, have you talked to Chris Elante or gotten any updates?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's first thing I did when I went in there is I went and saw him and sat there and talked to him, make sure that he was good, and I won't put his business out there or anything like that, but I did absolutely. First thing I did is went and checked on him.
So that was after the game, so he's already...
That was after the game.
Okay, so he's already back here with y'all.
Yes, I saw him, yeah.
Can you take us through that play a little bit and then how he was going on the field, what you saw, because we're so high up and everyone surrounding him?
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't see the actual collision because of people in front of me, but it was single high. You hold the safety, hitch, that's, first throw is to him and threw it into just a zone spot. And all I saw was him, go like this and then I don't know if he got hit or pushed, I don't know. But then he got hit and then he was hurt. So I didn't see, exactly what happened. I was 20 yards away.
Did he give you any kind of indication when he was surrounded by teammates that he felt like he was okay?
Oh yeah, he looked right at me, reached out and grabbed my hand just to make sure. I saw him. Absolutely, yeah.
Derek, is that a tough scene to see, especially because of he's had multiple concussions, multiple weeks, and then you see that happen?
100%. That's the scariest part of our game. That's a moment that's the only moment in a game where you'll see both teams take a second and be like, "Hey, man, this is someone's life." Because you don't know what's going on. So nobody wants that crap to happen to anybody. No matter. The rivalries and all this kind of stuff. Nobody wants that stuff to happen to anybody. So we're just glad. I'm just happy that I saw him. I'm happy he's okay. From what I saw, I didn't hear anything. But those are scary moments. And I've been a part of a few of them with different kind of injuries where this happened or that happened or something happened on a sideline or whatever. And at the end of the day, we are human too. So it's a brief moment during an NFL game where the humanity kicks in on both sides.
When this team is, almost it feels like, the worst it could get,
Yep.
in terms of 7 straight losses, the way you lost today.
Yeah.
What can you do as a team, A, to bounce back, and B, to figure out what's going wrong?
Well, it's very frustrating for us as players. Our group of guys, I've said this and I'll keep saying it, like our group of guys is so tight-knit and so close, And so what we do is we rally together, and we're going to keep going with whatever our coaches say. We give it everything that we have, and we're going to continue to do that and continue to rally together and lock arm in arm, because right now it is a hard time. It is. It's a hard time. It's a we're pissed off. We should be winning these football games, and we're not. And for us that's hard. It's hard to swallow. It's hard to deal with. And so, you can do one of two things. You can give up or you can keep fighting. And, we don't, whether it's fun or not, no one cares. We have to keep picking each other up and keep going forward. And so, we're going to keep doing to the very best of our ability everything we're asked to do, and keep going as we always have, and even, whatever it is, man, we talked as players, man. All of us will do whatever we have to do. We'll put it all out there for each other, and so we just got to keep doing that.
Derek, if it's not intangibles like effort, energy, buy-in, belief, that kind of stuff, I mean, is it just the team's not good enough right now? I mean, like, what do you pick?
Oh man, I don't feel like that's the case, because there's a lot of the same guys that the first 2 weeks of the season are, still playing, and so I don't ever feel that way. I never feel going into a game like, oh well, we don't have a chance. This one hurts. Like, if I was our fans, I'd be pissed right now. Because we are too. That it baffles us to come in here and get a loss like that. That one hurts. And so we got to pick ourselves up, and keep locking arms like we have all year. And we just got to play better. At the end of the day, we put it on ourselves. I put it on me. It starts with me. I got to be better for our team, and I can promise you the work will be done to where I am.
You've been on a few teams that have made in-season coaching changes. What is it like as a player going to bed not knowing if the coach is doing a good job or anything?
Yeah, before I came here, you hear those rumblings and things like that, and like that stuff to me is way above my decision-making abilities. My job is to play quarterback, take care of the football, try and score touchdowns, and put us in position to win football games. And, the one thing I've learned when that stuff happens is if you don't have a tight group, it can go south real quick. And so if they ever thought that something like that, which you never as players want that to happen, if they ever thought that they had to do that, then we better go tight together, because I've had that happen, and I've been a part of a team that made the playoffs, where something like that happened, and I've been a part of other teams where it's not fun. And so, to even think that could happen sucks, so it's the sucky part of this business, and it's the sucky part of where we're at right now.
Derek, you guys talk a lot about the veteran leaders having a message and knowing, and you've been through a lot of guys on this team who've never won. I mean, do you think that affects them?
Yeah.
I think Tyron Matthew talked about confidence, and this team doesn't have enough. Like, I mean, are
Yeah.
there people in that huddle who don't, believe you can win? Or
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they don't believe we can win. It's just, do we have some guys that, and it comes with experience, but do we have guys that are looking for someone else, like make the play? Yeah, absolutely. But that's what every team I've been on. Whether our record was what it is now or we have 10 wins. That's every team I've been on where that happens, and you just do your best to be in those situations and scenarios, and at the end of the game, I said something in the huddle before as we're going after that second play, I was trying to get that ball off, get that snap off, and just like there's a learned urgency, there's a learned thing in building character when you're in those moments. I've been in so many of those 2-minute drive moments in my entire life. Those are the things like you live for, you love, and you don't learn to love them until you've experienced them enough.
Derek, in this 7-game losing streak, y'all have had opportunities to win a bunch of these games. When the team doesn't finish, what does that do to the mindset of the team, when you have an opportunity, you don't get it?
Yeah, the scary thing when that happens, the scary thing that I've noticed over my 11 years is when that happens, and something maybe doesn't go your way, do people get deflated? Is it like, oh, it's here it goes again, or it's over? And it is a fight to in here that you got to teach yourself that even if something bad happens, there's still time on the clock. We can still win, and having that mindset and that that urgency. And so again, it's a learned thing. You have to go through those situations, but you got to check yourself after every game to make sure your mindset, like going into that tough situation, whatever it is, that you're mentally like, no, I still believe we can do this. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to make my play. When the ball goes this way, I'm going to make that tackle, or I'm going to make that throw, or I'm going to make that catch, whatever that block, whatever it is. Like, it's a learned thing where everything's going against you, but I'm still going to do my job on that play.
Derek, Michael Thomas was on social media today, again, kind of insinuating that your pass was the reason Elante got hurt. And I know this is the second time you've done this and you've addressed it. When you see that or hear that from a former teammate, kind of what is your reaction?
I have love for Mike. And when he does that, I don't really care for it, obviously. I've had so many teammates over the years, and he's like the one dude that didn't get along with me, and I don't know what I did to him. I don't know why he feels that way. I'm sorry, for whatever he's dealing with to make him feel like he's got to do that. I don't know, but he's never called me during any of this, my phone number has never changed. I've in fact called him on different occasions, just to try. And sometimes you can try as hard as you want, and it just doesn't work out, and that's okay. So I don't know why he feels any type of way. I didn't see it. I won't see it because I always ignore everything, good and bad. I try to ignore everything. So it's unfortunate, especially coming from a player like that. But I wish him the best. I hope he gets on a team and does what he wants to do and loves it. I'll never change. I love him in that way, wish him the best, but it's something I just would never do to a teammate, because it was single high. The ball went to where we talked about it going, and Chris got hit in the head. Unfortunately, that happens in our game, and I would never do it on purpose. I didn't throw him into a bad, look. It wasn't a different coverage where that guy was just, all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to the football aspect of it, I really don't have an answer for it. But when it comes to just the person part of it, I just hope he gets what he's looking for.
Last one, just to clarify, on the throw itself, you didn't feel like it was too high, that there's no guilt that you put him in a bad spot or anything like that.
Anytime my receivers get hurt, I feel it in my pit of my stomach, and so if what he wants me to say or what he's looking for is to put blame on me that I got Chris Olave hurt, he can put blame on me. It's not going to change my day. I have a pit in my stomach anytime one of my teammates goes down because I love him that much, no matter if I like him or not. And I happen to love Chris Olave, and we have a great relationship. So, anytime that happens, I feel sick to my stomach, and I hate, and I don't use that word a lot, but I hate moments like that. So, to be clear about that part, I hated it happening. It makes me sick anytime that happens, whether they don't get up or they do get up. I don't like that. You try your best to never put someone in that situation. And over the course of my career, it hasn't happened that many times. So thankfully, it hasn't. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm sorry that I had to even answer these questions. I wish we could have made it better. I wish it would have never happened. I wish I could have made Mike happier. But that was hard to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was quarterback Derek Carr after the Saints' 23-22 loss at the Carolina Panthers. Scott, next up, it is another divisional game, the Atlanta Falcons. However, this one will be in the Superdome. Hopefully getting back in there, back to some home cooking will help the team a little bit. What are some things that they can focus on? Still some positives that they can hang on to.
Well, yeah, I think anytime you have good things happen, it's easier to go to work. It's easier to go in and grind the tape and lift weights and do those things. There's still a lot of football season left.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You're going to be the number one seed in the NFC? No. Is everybody going to be talking about you winning the Super Bowl? No. But there's still a lot of football to play, and there's still a lot of memories to be made, success to be had. So, and like I said before, I've said it many times. Every day is an interview. There are no lay down games or lay down days. So, and that being said, it's the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
If you don't have the hate for Atlanta Falcons in your blood by now, then you should be in the building because it is real. It exists. The two cities hate each other. The organizations. It's always fun because social media departments of both teams have fun going back and forth. But there really is, and there should be a disdain for that team. That team, everybody's picking them. Especially now, they're going to say the Atlanta Falcons win the NFC South. You have a chance to go mess up some of the. They lost their starting wide receiver today. I don't know if he's going to play, but next week you have a chance to become the all-time leading. That's going
to come out and pack the dome. We want to see it black and gold in there. To come in hate for the Atlanta.
There's just and pretty good team. We never felt like that respect was reciprocated towards us, especially after we won a Super Bowl. They were so jealous and all the hateful things. But there is, and if you don't have that hatred because you haven't played them enough times, just ask somebody in the city. Go down, walk around the street, see somebody wearing a Saints logo on a part of their clothing. Say, tell me about the Atlanta Falcons and Saints rivalry, because that's where I learned it from. I learned it really fast when I got traded here. Like, we don't want to lose anybody, but don't lose to Atlanta or Dallas, and that has always stuck with me since I became a Saints player.
Well, we got the first one against Dallas, so let's go get this one against Atlanta at home. For Scott Shanley, I'm Erin Summers. John DeShazer, who is in Charlotte doing work, and we'll catch him on NewOrleansSaints.com, as you can too, after he writes all of the wonderful thoughts he has about this one. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will join you next week as the Saints take on Atlanta.